So in today's video, we're diving into my first impressions for Naga and Tia's kit. These two characters are very interesting, and so I wanted to make this video talking about my expectations and just my initial impressions before Naga and Tia gets released. But instead of echoing the same generic and obvious opinions that many others have, I want to offer a different perspective and play devil's advocate so that we can explore the potential drawbacks for these new characters and give you a more comprehensive evaluation about them. I have been seeing a lot of players say that Naga and Tia are going to be completely broken and they will basically be the new meta, and so I also want to go over that to tell you if I think that will be the case upon their release. Of course, we are still going to highlight their strengths, but I just think that character weaknesses are just as important to highlight because these characters are not perfect and you have to find a way to work around some aspects of their kit. The first thing we are going to talk about are shields and covers. A lot of their skills are going to revolve around this, so it's important to understand what these are and how they actually work. So to make things very simple, a shield is a protective layer that is applied by your units, and how much damage it can take depends on the ability scaling. But if the shield gets hit by one big damage that is more than the shield HP, it is going to break, but your team is not going to receive any of the excess damage. On the other hand, a cover, or basically the blue bar on top of your HP, is going to scale based on your nikke's level during the encounter. So you might be thinking, oh, I just need a higher level so that my cover's HP is also high. But that is not always going to be the case. And the reason being is because the cover HP scaling is very inconsistent throughout different levels. This was actually a big issue especially early into the game because there are certain levels where the cover HP is going to significantly increase but then immediately go down just after one more level. There is also no way for us to see the actual values on the cover HP, so it's very hard to know how much HP your cover has. I also don't remember seeing any announcements or any official statements about this issue, so as far as I know, nothing has changed about this. But the bottom line is, your cover is going to scale based on your character level. But unlike shields, there are situations where the damage towards your covers can actually bleed into your character's HP. So now that we know the differences between shields and covers, let's now talk about Naga. I actually think that Naga is going to be your best option if you can only afford to get one unit. She has a 20-second cooldown by default unlike Tia, and you actually have good alternatives for activating her skills. Her skill 1 is a really good supportive ability that will recover your cover's HP and also increase your team's damage to the enemy core when applying shields. I would say that it's safe to assume that any character can apply shields and trigger Naga's skill 1 because covers do not count as a shield, so she can't trigger this by herself. One more thing to keep in mind is that we are still not sure about how this cover HP recovery is going to work. Currently, we only have 3 characters that can regenerate the cover HP, and the way they do so is going to be different from each one. Goku and Litter can regenerate the cover's HP, but not unless the cover is gone, and Biscuit can also regenerate the cover's HP, but only once the cover is completely destroyed. So now looking at Naga's skill 1 description, the way it is worded doesn't match with Litter, Goku, or Biscuit's abilities. So there is a big possibility that Naga's cover HP recovery is going to work differently, because character abilities will have the same wording if it functions the same way. In best case scenario, this will recover the cover's HP regardless of whether it is completely broken or just partially damaged. This will be a big factor on how good she will actually be, but we are only going to find out when she is playable in the game. Next up we have her skill 2, and this one is a lot more clear in comparison because the skill conditions are simple and the effects are very straightforward. So after 5 normal attacks, she is going to increase the damage to enemy cores for 2 of your allies with the highest attack. If that was not enough, she is also going to heal 2 of your allies with the lowest HP. There is really not much to say about her skill 2. It provides really good buffs, it's very easy to activate, and the effects from this are very versatile. Moving on, we have her burst. This one is on a 20-second cooldown. It gives Naga a pierce effect on her attacks, it provides a decent amount of attack when activating, and it provides even more attack when your team is applying a shield. I am expecting the second attack buff to trigger, even if you applied the shield before activating Naga's burst. It only makes sense to work that way, because Tia is the burst 1 unit, so she will be applying her shield first before Naga can pop her burst. Now let's talk about the main thing that will make Naga feel like a complete unit, even if you don't have Tia. So let's say that you managed to get Naga, but you ran out of gems, or you simply don't want to spend more gems on Tia's banner. The good thing is you don't have to. Yes, you are incentivized to use them in the same team, but that doesn't mean that Naga is going to be unusable without Tia. And the main reason why you would want to use Tia with Naga in the first place is because you need a shielder to help trigger the second effect on Naga's skill 1, and as well as the additional attack buff from her burst. But the thing is, Tia is not your only option. You have a few other units that can also apply shields, but your best alternative is going to be Senti. And the crazy thing is that Senti actually has one big advantage over Tia. Tia can only apply a shield using her burst ability. Yes, Tia can reduce her cooldown by 26 seconds, effectively giving her a 14-second cooldown, but how often she can apply her shield not only depends on her skill cooldown, but also on the team's energy generation. Senti has the upper hand when it comes to shield application because her shields are only dependent on her skill levels and how fast she can do fully charged attacks. My Senti that has a level 8 skill 1 can apply a shield every 7 seconds, so that is significantly more shield application compared to Tia. The benefit from this is that you are effectively getting a 100% uptime on the second effect from Guardian of Friendship. This effect has a 10-second duration, so if you can consistently apply a shield before the duration ends, that is going to be really good because the majority of our additional damage towards enemy cores actually comes from this buff. And even if they are both burst 2 units, you should have no problems using them at the same time because Senti doesn't really have a high impact burst, so you can just keep using Naga's burst instead. But with that being said, shield application is where Senti's advantage is going to end. Tia has way better synergy with Naga, and that is by design, so we're going to talk about that as we go over Tia's kit. Her skill 1 is going to decrease her burst cooldown by 13 seconds, and this can stack twice with a 12-second duration. This also has another effect that will increase your whole team's attack damage when recovering the cover's HP. The first effect is really good, obviously because of the cooldown reduction, but the skill condition is what makes Tia hard to use, or straight up unusable when you don't have Naga. The cooldown reduction effect has a 12-second duration, and that is not going to be a problem if you have Naga, because Tia can increase the cover's max HP using her skill 2, just enough time for Naga to regenerate the cover's HP and trigger the passive skills on Tia. But aside from Naga, you don't really have any good alternatives for keeping the cooldown reduction stacks on her skill 1. You have Litter and Coco, but they only heal the cover every 15 seconds, and then you also have Biscuit, but she can only repair the cover every 40 seconds. Although, I was thinking about the possibility of Tia and Litter being able to keep the 2 stacks of the cooldown reduction. I can see this being possible, but it's really going to depend on the timing for when Litter activates her skill 2, and if the timing on Tia's burst is going to be good enough for Litter to activate her skill 2 again. So basically, what we are hoping to happen is that we will be able to cycle between Litter's skill 2 and Tia's burst so that the cooldown reduction buff doesn't expire. Right now, it's hard to tell if this is going to work, so we just have to wait and see after they get released. When it comes to her skill 2, we actually briefly mentioned this in the previous section, but this will basically increase your cover's max HP for 5 seconds, so that you don't necessarily have to get hit by the enemy to be able to recover the cover's HP and trigger the buffs on Tia's kit. On top of that, she also taunts the enemies, recovers her own cover's HP, and she gains a little bit of lifesteal, which is always good, especially for a tank. And lastly, her burst ability is going to generate 2 shields that are going to scale differently. The first one is going to apply to herself, scaling based on 35% of her final max HP. And the other shield will be applied to the rest of your team, but this is only going to scale based on 10.21% of her final max HP. And one more thing is that this is going to work the same way as Winter Shopper Rupee's burst, where you are forced to use another burst 1 unit to actually be able to enter full burst mode. Tia is looking to be a really good tank unit, not only because of her team-wide utility, but also she looks very promising in terms of being able to sustain herself. Of course, you still have to check a few boxes to actually make her work, but if you are able to do so, she will be a really good tank / defense-oriented support for your teams. Overall, they both look like really good units, but I don't think that these 2 characters being called broken or the new meta are by any means justified. The reason being is because for one, not all of your enemies are going to have a core, so additional damage to that is not always going to be useful. And I also have concerns about consistency in terms of Naga's healing capability because she can only heal 2 units at a time, and the scaling on this healing is not the best. We also don't know how her cover HP recovery actually works. Are you still going to be able to recover the HP even if the cover is completely broken? Or does it work the same way as Litter? So there's just too many questions and uncertainties for us to immediately jump to the conclusion that these characters will be broken and be the new meta. What I'm personally hoping for is, of course, I want them to be good, but I prefer them to be the best at one specific thing instead of being good for every single type of content, because that is honestly getting boring and the nikke meta is already dry as it is. As for my initial ratings, I would give Naga double S tier for the campaign, triple S tier for solo bosses, double S tier for boss with ads, and S tier for PvP. For Tia, I will give her triple S tier for solo bosses and double S tier for everything else except PvP, because for that, I think that she will be S tier. And also keep in mind that this rating is assuming that you have both Naga and Tia in your team. So yeah, let me know what you think about these two characters, if you are pulling for them right away, or are you saving your gems for the anniversary. And as always, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.